Welcome to yet another video content of my channel. In this particular lesson of the day, we are going to start with business communication. And the first lesson that we are going to cover shall include the introductory chapter on communication. We will learn about the overview of communication, the definition of communication, the major elements of communication. So to start off with, what is communication? Communication is nothing but basic exchange of information which leads to mutual understanding. Whatever I am telling you, if you are able to understand it, then that makes the communication effective. If you are not able to understand what I am telling you or what I am trying to teach you, then the communication is not effective. So communication is basically an exchange of information between two or more persons which leads to mutual intelligibility, that is, which both of us can understand. And here, by this, you may know that communication is a two-way process. It cannot be a one-way process. That is to say that if I am trying my level best to make you understand a particular lesson, but you are not able to understand it, then communication doesn't really take place, even if I may try to give my 200% effort towards it. So only true communication and effective communication can take place when you are also equally participating in the process. When you are also giving your feedback that you are able to understand what I am trying to communicate. That is called communication. Now, communication can not just be conveyed through words. Of course, words in speech, it is the basis of communication, but that apart, communication can also take place through gestures, through symbols, through letters. So there are various ways by which we can communicate. Of course, the most common way by which we communicate is through words. So this communication that is taking place between us is through words, through speeches. That is the basis of communication. But again, remember, there are other ways by which we can communicate that can take place through gestures, through symbols, through letters. Next, we come to the elements of communication. What are the elements or principles of communication? What are the things that constitute a communication process? What are those things without which we cannot ensure a proper and a smooth communication? The first element of communication is the sender. The sender is the source of communication. It is the source of communication because the sender imagines, it creates, and it sends the message. So in this particular exchange that we are having, can you tell me who's the sender? I am the sender. I am sending out the message. What is the message? We are going to learn about it in the following portions of the video. Now, as a sender, I am creating the content. So I am creating the message for you, the message that needs to be communicated. So it is the sender of the message who decides how to say and what to say as far as the communication of the message is concerned. The second step involving is encoding of the message. What is encoding the message? Encoding of message includes choosing the right kind of words and examples and the right word order in order to communicate the message. That is the reason why we create content, why we create scripts, why we prepare notes. Why does a teacher prepare notes for the class? It is because that is how the teacher encodes the message, how a teacher prepares the message for the class, how the teacher decides what kind of examples to bring in, what kind of analogies to bring in, what are the right words and examples to use in order to communicate, to create, to send the message across. That is the second step. The third step for the sender is to discuss with the receiver, or to think what is the best way to convey the message. What should be the right tone of the voice? What should be the body language? What should be the ambience to create and to convey the message? All these are very important, because unless the body language is proper, you will never feel like listening to the sender. Unless the voice has a proper tempo, you wouldn't feel like listening to what the sender has to say. So all these are very important. And finally, what matters most for the sender of the message is the audience's reaction. So it really matters a lot for the teacher whether the sender, whatever the sender is trying to communicate across to the listeners, they are able to receive the message properly, they are able to interpret the message properly, and they are able to understand and take a proper feedback of what the sender is trying to say. So the sender's message will be successful once the audience come up with a proper clarification. Like suppose we have a classroom over here, and whatever the teacher is saying by way of his or her lecture to the students, if the students come up with doubt clarification, if the students come up with questions, these are nothing but feedback to the sender or the teacher that the students are following the class. By contrast, if the class is a relatively quiet class, the teacher may have a doubt whether she is able to send her message or encode her message across properly. So we know that encoding, the sender encodes the message. Encoding is nothing but the right choice of words, examples, and proper sentence structure and an ambience in order to send the message or to communicate effectively to the receiver. Next, we come to the next element of communication, the next very, very important constituent of communication, without which communication is incomplete. That is message. Without message, the communication system or the communication process falls flat. Now, it depends on the sender how she or he wishes to encode the message. This is something I have already told you just before, right? If it is a speech, the message has to be properly encoded in the right words, using the right vocabulary, using the right style and the right register. The tone of the voice should also be taken into account. If it's a written communication, suppose you're writing a report. So in that case, the formatting, the writing style, the proper syntax of the sentence, all these are really very important in order to frame the right kind of message. We are going to learn in details about the etiquettes or the ways of writing a proper business communication, writing in business communication, when we are going to learn about writing skills. Now, suppose I'm giving an example. Suppose I'm taking a class in a proper classroom situation. In fact, this has been my experience before. I'm sharing this experience in order to highlight this point, that how you can encode the message or how the message can be appropriately suited to the context and psychology of the learners. Like it happened that when I was teaching in one of the institutes where I have worked earlier, that day there was this, suppose you know, this IPL match coming up. Like it was scheduled towards the afternoon, and it happened to be a very interesting match for which most of my students, the young learners, the college going students, they were very excited about it. And right when I entered the class, they were really requesting me, ma'am, could you please release us early because it's the match. So actually the thing is that there I knew the situation was such that I had to I cannot really let go of the class, but again I have to complete what was supposed to be completed in the class. So what I did was, I had to keep the message short, crisp, interesting and relevant. Suppose if it would have been a regular 2-hour class, I could have had elaborated on the message. Maybe I could have given, instead of 2, I could have given 5 examples. I could have brought in a few more analogies in order to explain my lecture, but I knew that my students were not in the right mood to learn on that day. So what I did was that I had to cover the key points, so I had to just cut short the entire thing, keeping the points relevant, so that the little bit of time that I got, I requested them, okay, instead of 2 hours, I'll make the class a 1 hour class, but please listen to the lecture properly. And trust me, none of them troubled me. Like, none of them showed any kind of, any kind of disinterest towards the class, or that they are really impatient for the class to get over, because I told them the entire message for the communication in classroom had to be tailor-made into a 1 hour slot, just keeping the right information. So at times you have to be flexible enough while delivering your message, because you never know what kind of situation come up. You never know in what kind of mood your listeners are in, the receivers are in, right? So this is how you need to customize your message. Customize is a very, a word that is very much doing rounds nowadays. So you have to customize your message.
That's all for today's lesson. Hope you enjoyed the video. We will be completing the elements of communication over the next 2 weeks. Till then, wish you all a very happy learning. Thank you so much.